All right, everybody, buckle up, because what I witnessed on Sportcenter's immediate post-game coverage last night is going to make your blood boil if you're a Raiders fan, and honestly, if you're not a Raiders fan, you're probably going to feel secondhand embarrassment for an entire organization. This 25-24 loss to Chicago wasn't just another game. This was a complete organizational meltdown disguised as a competitive football contest. And I'm about to break down every painful detail of what the ESPN panel dissected in real time. So I'm watching this emergency Sportcenter segment they threw together right after the game ended. And Mitchell Renz is absolutely losing his mind on camera. And I mean that in the most professional way possible. The man looked like he'd just watched his favorite restaurant burn down while he was still hungry. The panel was going through this game film, and what emerged wasn't just a story about one bad performance. This was a complete indictment of everything the Raiders thought they were building under Pete Carroll's leadership. And hey, if you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's my dream to reach 1,000 subscribers on the channel, and every single one of you helps me get closer to that goal. Let me paint the picture of what really went down during this broadcast, because the surface-level Raiders lose close game narrative completely misses the psychological warfare that just took place between the Raiders and their own incompetence. The ESPN crew was breaking down every single turnover, every missed opportunity, every coaching decision that made you question whether anyone in that organization actually understands professional football. Mitchell was asking this question that I think cuts to the heart of everything. Should the Raiders bench Geno Smith? Not as a rhetorical question, but as a legitimate organizational crossroads that defines their entire season. Here's what the Sportcenter analysis revealed that casual fans completely missed. This wasn't just about Geno Smith throwing 3 interceptions, though those were absolutely back-breaking. This was about a quarterback who has completely lost his ability to read defensive coverages, making throws that looked like he was playing with his eyes closed. The panel was showing side-by-side comparisons of Smith's decision-making from previous seasons versus what we're seeing now, and the decline is so dramatic, it's almost hard to believe we're watching the same player. Mitchell made this comparison during the broadcast that absolutely destroyed me. He said watching Geno Smith right now is like watching someone with dyslexia trying to read defensive coverages. The throws he's making, the decisions he's choosing, the situations he's putting his team in. These are the kinds of mistakes that Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and Jimmy Garoppolo were making when they were clearly in over their heads. But Smith is supposed to be the veteran leader, the guy Pete Carroll handpicked to stabilize this position. The broadcast then dove into what this means for Pete Carroll's credibility as a head coach, and this is where the segment got absolutely brutal. Carroll built his entire reputation on the compete mentality, on getting the best out of players through relentless competition and accountability. But how do you preach competition when your starting quarterback is single-handedly losing games and there's apparently no real threat to his job security? The ESPN panel was asking whether Carroll has become too loyal to his guys at the expense of what's actually best for the team. What really emerged from the Sportcenter coverage was this sense that the Raiders are trapped in quarterback purgatory, and they've been there for years. Since Derek Carr left, and Mitchell made this painful admission that watching Smith makes him miss Carr, which is saying something, they've cycled through Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and now Smith. Every single one of these acquisitions was supposed to be the bridge quarterback, the veteran presence who could manage games while they figured out their long-term solution. But here's the psychological reality that the broadcast kept circling back to. When you keep bringing in journeyman quarterbacks and expecting different results, you're not solving a quarterback problem. You're creating a quarterback culture problem. Players start playing tentatively, coaches start calling conservative games, and the entire organization begins operating from a place of fear rather than confidence. That's exactly what we're seeing in Las Vegas right now. The defensive performance became a major talking point during the Sportcenter analysis, and this is where the frustration becomes almost unbearable for Raiders fans. Patrick Graham's defense played what the panel called an almost perfect game. The The Bears had the ball inside the Raiders' 24-yard line 5 different times and didn't score a touchdown 5 times. Think about the level of defensive execution required to keep a team out of the end zone when they're consistently getting short field opportunity. Max Crosby's performance, specifically, had the ESPN crew practically running out of superlative. 5 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, constant pressure, despite getting double and triple teamed throughout the game. Mitchell called it one of the greatest individual defensive performances he's seen from Crosby. And when you watch the tape, it's hard to argue. The man was everywhere, disrupting plays, affecting the quarterback, showing the kind of relentless motor that defines elite pass rushers. But here's what makes this loss so psychologically devastating. And the Sportcenter panel hammered this point home repeatedly. When your defense plays that well, and you still lose, it's not bad luck or unfortunate circumstance. It's organizational failure at the most fundamental level. Good teams find ways to win games when one unit carries the load. Bad teams find ways to lose even when they're getting elite performances from multiple position groups. The Colton Miller injury news broke during the broadcast, and while the ESPN crew didn't have complete details yet, the implications were immediately obvious to anyone who understands offensive line construction. Miller has been one of the few bright spots on this Raiders roster, and if he's dealing with a significant injury, that's another massive blow to an offense that's already struggling with identity and execution issues. The offensive line performance became another layer of frustration during the Sportcenter analysis. The panel was showing clips of the running game actually working, of Zamir White finally getting the kind of rushing yards that suggest he could be a legitimate feature back. The blocking was there, the scheme was working, and for stretches of this game, the Raiders looked like they had found their offensive identity. But none of that matters when your quarterback is actively sabotaging drives with catastrophic decision-making. The broadcast kept coming back to this fundamental question that I think defines the entire Raiders season. What exactly is this team's identity? 4 weeks into the season, 1-3 record, 3 straight losses, and nobody can articulate what the Raiders are supposed to be good at. They're not a running team, despite having the personnel for it. They're not a passing team, despite investing heavily in skilled position players. They're not a defensive team, despite having elite individual talent. Mitchell's frustration was palpable throughout the entire segment, and honestly, it was kind of cathartic to watch someone articulate what every Raiders fan has been feeling. He talked about how sick to his stomach he was, how heartbroken this loss made him, how watching a defense play that well only to have it wasted by quarterback incompetence is the kind of thing that makes you question your loyalty to a franchise. The comparison to Derek Carr became a recurring theme, and this hit different because Mitchell has been one of Carr's biggest critics over the years. But when you're watching Geno Smith make the same types of mistakes that got Carr run out of town, except worse, and with less upside, suddenly Carr's steady mediocrity starts looking pretty appealing. That's not saying they should bring Carr back, that ship has sailed, but it's acknowledging that lateral moves at quarterback aren't actually solving anything. The Sportcenter crew spent significant time analyzing the blocked field goal that sealed the game for Chicago, and this became a perfect metaphor for everything wrong with this Raiders season. Even when they do everything right, get into field goal position, line up properly, execute the snap, and hold, something catastrophic happens. That's not bad luck. That's the kind of thing that happens to teams that don't have championship-level attention to detail in crucial moments. Pete Carroll's coaching decisions came under intense scrutiny during the broadcast, and the panel was asking legitimate questions about his game management and situational awareness. This was supposed to be a prove-it game for Carroll, a chance to show that his competitive philosophy could translate to winning close games against quality opponents. Instead, it reinforced every criticism about his inability to make the tactical adjustments necessary to win in today's NFL. The psychological impact on the locker room is something the ESPN analysis kept circling back to, and this might be the most concerning aspect of this entire situation. When players are giving maximum effort, like we saw from the defense and the offensive line, and it's still not enough because of quarterback play, that creates the kind of internal tension that can destroy team chemistry. How long can Max Crosby and the defensive unit continue playing at an elite level when they know their efforts are being wasted? The schedule analysis became particularly sobering during the Sportcenter coverage. The Raiders have winnable games coming up against Indianapolis and Tennessee, but they need to get to 3-3 before facing Kansas City in Week 7. If they can't beat teams like the Colts and Titans at home, with their season on the line, then serious questions need to be asked about the entire coaching staff and organizational direction. That's what went down on Sportcenter last night, and honestly, the more I think about this Raiders situation, the more convinced I become that we're watching an organizational crossroads in real time. Either they make the hard decisions necessary to salvage this season, or we're looking at another wasted year in Las Vegas. The talent is there. The coaching staff has pedigree, but at some point, you have to execute when it matters most. Right now, they're not doing that. The clock is ticking.